Hi guys, welcome to Education College's Selective Preparation Power Reading Test 13. Today we'll be reading a closed passage titled, There are Novel Ways of Getting Teenage Boys Reading and Girls into IT. Let's begin. The accepted wisdom is that boys and girls learn differently, but that doesn't mean educators are accepting gender differences as fait accompli. Moves are afoot to make reading as specky as footy and computer games for adolescent boys, and IT as fabulous as fashion and social networking for girls. Then we got the blank. But the State Library of Victoria's Boys, Blokes, Books and Bites program concentrates on years 5 to 8, a period when many boys give up reading for pleasure. Blank. The library's reader development and on-site learning manager, Paula Kelly, says a toolkit has been sent to every co-ed and boys school in Victoria. The program includes a website with great advice on great reads for boys and a blog for boys to discuss books. It's not so much that boys can't read as they choose not to read. They don't see it as cool and acceptable, Kelly says. There's also a distinct lack of male role models actually reading. Blank. They equate the idea of reading as work. It's not fun. Blank. Kelly says boys need a choice about what they read, and novels, fiction, non-fiction, graphic novels, books that have an audio component, and comics should all be offered. Sure, reading a novel raises your chance at school development, but ultimately reading is good for you. It's about your well-being. Blank. Girls come to reading much more easily. No one looks at a girl and goes, "You're a bit of a nerd because you're a reader." There is no issue with girls, but there is with boys. At the launch of the program on Thursday, University of Melbourne Vice-Chancellor Prof. Glyn Davis said the program was a positive way to encourage children to read without getting bogged down in political debates about methods of reading literacy. There are different things about cultural literacy and basic reading skills in this program, but the end result is designed to get boys reading and to enjoy reading, he said. Blank. But a key part of the explanation lies in the electronic world and all the current alternatives to books, he said. So now we'll begin going through the different options. So there are 6 parts removed. Now remember, we always have one extra sentence that's not needed, so between A to G. So we'll start reading the options first. A. She says the library is often asked if it will offer a similar program for girls. B. But when they see their dads reading or other men reading, it is usually for purposes of work. C. Davis says it was hard to explain why it had become difficult to encourage boys to read. D. Concern that boys are lagging behind girls in reading tests has led to numerous primary and secondary programs. E. It has been difficult to get girls interested in an IT program. Most of our programs are filled with boys. And F. Schools are encouraged to run boys' book clubs, invite fathers and other male role models to the school and form partnerships with local libraries. Or G. Developed by the Library Centre of Youth Literature, it promotes boys, their families, schools and libraries talking about books. And then here we have questions 15 to 20, and you're going to pick which option for each letter. So we're going to go back to the actual reading, and we're just going to read through it again and see which option might fit. So we had option 15, and you can see it's in the first part. So it says, after when we mentioned the girls wanting to get into IT here, IT as fabulous as fashion and social networking for girls, and also boys, making reading as specky as football and computer games. So if we look at 15, we have all of these options here. So remember, if it's the introduction of the piece, an introduction always talks about what this whole entire piece is going to be talking about and what the main concern is. So if we look here, we can see there's only one option that does that, which is D. Concern that boys are lagging behind girls in reading tests has led to numerous primary and secondary programs. Because if you look through option A, it says, she says, but nothing has been said yet, so it's not going to be A. B says, when they see their dads reading, this is not mentioned yet, this will be mentioned later. C says, Davies said it was hard, Davies hasn't been introduced yet. E says, it has been difficult to get girls interested in an IT program, most of our programs are for boys. That's true, but not mentioned yet, because that will be mentioned further down. F said, schools are encouraged to run boys' book clubs and invite the fathers and role models. True, but remember we're talking about a mix of boys and girls here. And G says developed by the Library Centre of Youth, but remember the program hasn't been introduced yet. So for 15, we've only got option D. and I circled it. Now we're going to go back to question 16, but you can see D's already been taken. So 16 says, so now it's been introduced, but State Victoria Library, they introduced a program, and Paula Kelly has been mentioned after. So let's see the options. Remember, D has already been picked, so it can be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but not D. So we are just going to go back and see the options. So remember, they mentioned the program, so it's most likely to be one that actually mentions this. So we got G here, which says, developed by the Libraries Center of Youth Literature, it promotes boys, their families, schools, and libraries talking about books. Y, again, if we look at A, she's just been mentioned afterwards and not before. B will be mentioned later because we haven't mentioned this program in depth yet, so that will be later. C, Davies hasn't been introduced again. E, while E could be true, we're not mentioning the girls' IT. We're focusing on the boys who need to be learning to read. Could be F, but again, they just mentioned this center, and they're going to talk about who it was developed by. So it must be G, which is option D. We're going to go back to 17 now. So we've finished this one and this one. 17 is further down. Kelly has been mentioned. It says she's talking here, down to here. And if it's between these, it must be she's still talking. There's also a distinct lack of male role models actually reading. Blank, they equate the idea of reading as work, it's not fun. So if we look here, options, it's obviously going to be about the boys and seeing their role models who are their fathers or male role models who are reading. So it must be option B, where it says, when they see their dads reading or other men reading, it is usually for purposes of work. So we got option B, which is option A. So remember, they see that these male or they're in the school, the boys aren't reading because when they see their fathers reading, it's usually because they're working, like an accountant reads tax books, etc. So therefore, these boys aren't encouraged to read. Now we got 18. 18 is before, but it's after she speaks, but Kelly is still speaking. So afterwards it says, Kelly says boys need a choice about what they read in novels, non-fiction, graphic novels, books that have an audio component, and comics should all be offered. Oh, sorry. So if we go back to the options, remember B, D, and G have already been taken. So we have A. She says the library is often asked about will run a similar program for girls. That might be a bit farther down because we're still talking about boys so far, so it's not going to be option A. Davies, again, hasn't been introduced, so it's not C. So we've got E or F. Again, not E because we're not talking about girls' IT program. We're still focusing on the boys in the library. So it'll be option F. Schools are encouraged to run boys' book clubs, invite fathers and other male role models to the school, and form partnerships with local libraries. So for 18, we have F, which is option D. So we're going to go through 19 now, so we've got 2 left. So again, it's after she's speaking, so it must be she said something because Kelly is still speaking. But she did say earlier, sure, reading a novel raises your chances of school achievement, but ultimately reading is good for you. It's about your well-being. And then afterwards it says, girls come to reading much more easily. No one looks at a girl and goes, etc. So if we look at the options we have left, we have A, C, or E. So again, if we look through the options, it can't be C still because Davies hasn't been introduced. We're still talking about Kelly, so it must be A. She says the library is often asked if it will offer a similar program to girls. We've just been talking about girls. So A is the only option that works. So now we'll go to the last question, which is option 20. So it must be either C or E, and one of them isn't going to fit for either. Now we're up to option 20. So we've already seen Kelly's finished speaking, and now Professor Davies has been introduced. So yes, for option 20, Davies is talking. He did say, there are important things about cultural literacy and basic reading skills in this program, but the end result is designed to get boys reading and to enjoy reading, he said. And then there is the blank, and then he says afterwards, but a key part of the explanation lies in the electronic world and all the alternative to books, he said. So again, it must be about Davies, and we can see that's only option C. And we can see that's only option C. Davy said it was hard to explain why it had become difficult to encourage boys to read. So we can see option E was the extra sentence. So for question 20, you got option B for input C. Thank you guys for coming to Educating College's Selective Preparation Power Reading Test 13. I'll see you guys next time.